President Trump is imposing new tariffs. He says copper imports will soon face a 50% levy, just like steel and aluminum. Trump also warned tariffs on semiconductors and pharmaceuticals.
We did steel, as you know, they're 50%. We did aluminum, 50%. Lumber just came out. Now, today we're doing copper. I believe the tariff on copper, we're going to make it 50%.
In a surprise declaration at a cabinet meeting in Washington, U.S. President Donald Trump announced a sweeping 50% tariff on all imported copper, stating, "I believe the tariff on copper, we're going to make it 50%. 50%. That single sentence sent shockwaves across global markets. Within minutes, copper futures in New York exploded to a record $5.95 per pound, surging 13% in a single session, the sharpest one-day rise in the contract's history. U.S. prices are now 25% higher than London Metal Exchange prices, creating an unprecedented arbitrage gap. Canada in the crosshairs. This move directly threatens Canada's $9.3 billion copper export pipeline, especially shipments that begin in Quebec, pass through Asian smelters, and return as refined metal to American factories. Now, Ottawa faces a tough choice: absorb the cost and protect trade ties, or reroute its entire copper supply chain eastward, bypassing the U.S. completely. Either option would rewire North American trade overnight. From metal to Main Street, a price explosion. The fallout from Trump's copper tariff isn't just hitting governments and traders, it's landing squarely on everyday consumers. According to Cox Automotive, the existing 25% tariff already adds around $6,000 to the sticker price of a Canadian-built car. If the full 50% duty kicks in, that surcharge could easily cross into five-figure territory for each vehicle. Electric vehicles are especially vulnerable, as they use nearly 4 times more copper than traditional gasoline cars, pushing material costs up by $220 or more per unit. But the impact goes beyond car lots. Every mile of high-voltage transmission line requires nearly 5 tons of copper, meaning grid expansion projects, central to Biden's infrastructure agenda, are now facing billions in extra costs. That financial strain will likely fall to consumers in the form of higher electricity bills, delayed upgrades, and squeezed public budgets. What began as a tariff targeting raw metal is now ricocheting through showrooms, job sites, and power grids, reshaping the real-world economy one wire and wheel at a time. Market quake after Trump's signature. Just hours after Wall Street closed on July 10, President Trump signed a Section 232 proclamation that officially locked in a 50% copper tariff, set to take effect August 1. While the administration framed the move as a matter of national security, U.S. government data tells a different story. America imported over 810,000 tons of refined copper in 2024 alone. That means nearly half of the copper-feeding U.S. factories will now carry the same tax burden as luxury goods. In a move trade experts call classic pressure now, deal later, the proclamation also quietly pushed back trade negotiation deadlines with Canada, China, and the EU, from July 9 to August 1, leaving just weeks to cut side deals or face the full impact. Canada, which refined 25% of all U.S. copper imports last year, felt the shock instantly. Prime Minister Mark Carney vowed to defend Canadian businesses and workers using every legal and diplomatic tool available, hinting at WTO litigation and the possibility of retaliatory tariffs. But Canada's private sector didn't wait for diplomacy to catch up. Mining giant Teck Resources immediately activated contingency plans, redirecting copper shipments to buyers in South Korea and China and bypassing U.S. customers altogether. Ports, warehouses, and export terminals are now pivoting their logistics networks in real time. Downward trend meanwhile, the broader economic tremors are spreading. UBS analysts warn that if the U.S. price premium over global copper holds above $1,000 per ton, American manufacturers could face an added $4.2 billion in costs this quarter alone. That's not just a blip, it could shave half a percentage point off Q4 GDP, delivering a sharp blow to an economy already juggling high inflation and election year uncertainty. In essence, a tariff aimed at securing supply chains could end up exporting both the metal and the growth, leaving American industry with higher costs and fewer options. The home you can't afford anymore. The copper tariff crisis has moved far beyond factories and trading desks. It's now hitting American families where it hurts most, their homes and their wallets. According to the National Association of Home Builders, rising copper and metal import duties are adding as much as $22,000 to the cost of building a new house, an amount that wipes out an entire down payment for many first-time buyers. It's not just housing. Even a standard Detroit-built pickup truck could get $3,000 more expensive under the tariff regime. From vehicles to power lines, from chargers to appliances, the ripple effect of metal inflation means Americans are now paying more simply to drive, charge, or build anything. Meanwhile, Canada isn't just retaliating, it's pivoting fast. By March 31st, Statistics Canada reported a sharp 24.8% increase in copper exports to non-US buyers, while sales to the US dropped by 6.6%. Provincial trade officials have already flown to copper-producing nations like Peru and Chile, lining up alternate buyers and rewriting supply deals. Ottawa is considering waiving export permit fees to accelerate shipments to Asia, essentially paying miners to look east instead of south. Behind closed doors, Canadian trade strategists admit WTO action would take years, but the near-term plan is clear: reroute, replace, and reduce exposure to US markets. Firecracker, and the clock is ticking. Canada has already drafted a $125 billion Canadian retaliation package set to detonate at 12:01 a.m. on July 22, slapping new duties on American pharmaceuticals, tech, and consumer goods. If activated, the hit could cost US exporters an estimated 4% on all cross-border sales, and that's only round one. Receipt: with copper now trading above $12,000 per metric ton, every electric vehicle, home, and data center build is absorbing higher costs. JP Morgan warns that if tariffs persist, they could stall construction, shrink factory output, and drag down GDP. Ottawa believed tensions were easing when it scrapped its digital services tax in late June, a move meant to win goodwill from Washington. But Trump's administration responded with tariffs anyway, targeting copper, and now hinting at pharmaceuticals. What was once a policy threat is now an everyday financial burden, in your mortgage, your driveway, and your electric bill. The next 10 days will decide everything. Will the US retreat in time to avoid recession-level consequences, or double down and gamble that voters will accept higher prices in the name of economic security? Speaking head, drop your prediction in the comments. Is a last-minute handshake still possible, or are we racing toward a full-scale trade war? The trade war is no longer a policy debate happening behind closed doors. It's here, and it's personal. It's in your driveway, in your mortgage, in every copper wire that powers your home, and every price tag that just got heavier. Canada is moving on, rerouting trade to Asia. American manufacturers are scrambling, and consumers, they're left-footing the bill. So what happens next? Will the US pull back to prevent inflation and job losses? Or double down and bet that voters will pay more for the sake of economic security? The next 10 days could decide the future of North American trade, and the price of everything you depend on. Speaking head, drop your prediction in the comments. Will there be a last-minute handshake, or a full-blown trade war? So here we are, copper at record highs, trade deals on life support, and everyday people paying the price for a political power play. Canada is rerouting, US factories are recalculating, and inflation, it's already knocking on your door. The copper tariff wasn't just an economic decision, it was a warning shot. A signal that global trade as we knew it is being torn up and redrawn. The next 10 days could define the next 10 years. Will leaders choose diplomacy, or detonation? The countdown has begun. Hourglass.